Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to another episode of Powerful Conversations, a talk show that brings the power of God through conversation to your situation. I'm excited to see you on today. So we just bless God for you on today and welcome, just welcome. When you come in, type in the chat where you're coming in from. Type in if you're coming from Los Angeles, California, if you're coming from Santa Clarita, California, wherever you're coming in from, just type it in the chat. But we know we have an exciting show for you today. Everybody likes to talk about relationships, but not only are we going to talk about relationships on today, there's going to be a transformation that's going to take place on today. I have a special guest that's coming on to talk with me and to have a conversation about relationships. And his name is Jeffrey Moses. So we bless God on today for him, and we bless God today for you. So what I always say, if nobody has told you that they love you today, guess what? I love you. So know that there is somebody that loves you and that's concerned about you and that cares for you. So I love you on today, on this wonderful, beautiful Saturday, wherever you're coming in from. It's a beautiful day. And if you're watching the replay, type in the chat. If you're watching the replay, type in the chat and you could talk back to us and leave your comments and your remarks about enjoying the conversation. So at this time, I'm not going to delay. I am going to bring on Minister Jeffrey. How are you doing, man of God? How are you doing today? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Good morning, Ambassador. How are you?
I am blessed and highly favored. I'm doing well. I'm excited to have you on with me today as we talk about relationships. And I think that's a topic that a lot of people like to indulge in. And it's a fun conversation. It's a serious conversation, but at the same time, it's a fun conversation, to talk about. So tell the people a little bit about yourself.
Well, basically, I would like to say thank you, Ambassador. It's definitely been a privilege and an honor working with you and ministering with you over the last couple of years as a musician for your various conferences. Definitely have been exciting. And even though a lot of them have been geared, towards the ladies, definitely a lot of
Yes.
impartation, I was able to walk away with and not just playing as a musician, but
Yes.
basically, and I thank God for that. I mean, if I was to sum up my life, I thank God that He has truly blessed me. Growing up in the city of Compton, I'm the youngest of four sons. My mom was a single parent, and I didn't know that God was going to call me into the ministry. It's
Okay.
that that it's something in you, but you don't know what it is. And
Yes.
so at 8 years old, I kind of disclosed to my mom that I wanted to be a musician and I wanted to play piano. And so she said, "No, Jeffrey, nobody in our family plays music." And so I just kept tugging and tugging. So eventually she finally bought me a keyboard. And long story short, I learned to play the piano, and it became a passion as well as a purpose. I didn't know, Ambassador, that it was for a greater purpose, because God was using that to actually pull me into the ministry. And, in 2007, again, God was tugging at me, didn't know what it was. And one day, one of the parents at the school that I worked at, she came up to me, and she's an evangelist, and her husband is an elder in the Church of God in Christ. And she says, "I see this light around you, man to God. I see this light around you." And I'm looking at her kind of like, okay, the sun is out. It's hot. That's the light that
Okay.
you see. And it was like, and she says, "No, but it's like everywhere you go, I see this light." And she said, "I just wanted to let you know." And so it was like a Thursday. So I went home and I began to pray and I began to meditate. And I said, "Lord, what is this?" And He dropped in my spirit, Ambassador, the scripture, Joel 2:27 and 28. But I didn't read it. So that was Thursday. Friday came along, still didn't read it. Saturday came along, Sunday. Monday was Memorial Day. So I got up
Okay.
and I'm sitting on the edge of the bed. And I said, "You know what, Lord, I'm going to read that passage of scripture." And so I begin to read it. And the prophet is saying that in the last days, I'm going to pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and daughters shall prophesy. And that's when it struck. God, you're calling me, to be a minister. So long story short, I go to Bible study on Wednesday, and I knock on the pastor's door, and I said, may I come in? And he says, come in. And I said, Pastor, I just want to share something with you. And he says, what is it? And I said, I believe God is calling me to preach. And he started laughing.
Okay.
And so I'm looking at him like, it's nothing funny. That's not funny. And he says, well, Moses, I've been waiting on you to tell me that. And it's like, oh, okay, I see. So it was like kind of everybody else was seeing this and I didn't see it, And so, with that, God has blessed me. And I've been through a lot, Ambassador, but I thank God for the call because truly God has kept me.
Amen. And it's nothing like if anybody can keep us, he's the only one that can keep us. So let's get into it. As well, they don't know that we didn't premeditate this show and we haven't really discussed it, but briefly on the phone call because I was driving down the street and I told you where I was at when God dropped you in my spirit, and I pulled over and called you immediately and said, hey, why don't you join me on the show tomorrow? And that's the way it's happened. Yeah. So about 9:30 this morning, I came in here at my desk and sat down and started going over some things about relationship. A lot of people, we're going to start off talking about what people desire to be married, and then we're going to talk about marriage. There's a lot of people that desire to be married.
Yes.
But then you hear some people say that they're not going to change. So what would you say about that? In marriage, do you feel that a person should be willing to change? Or do you think a person should just, be accepted as they are?
In all honesty, Ambassador, I think it's a two-way street.
Okay.
I would say when we think about life is constantly changing. So I would have to say on initially that in life we go through changes. At least 4 stages in our lives. We're born as babies, and then we go through a pre or post operational stage as children. Then we become adults, and then we become elderly. And so that is 4 stages of changes right there. And so I think for a person to say, well, I don't want to change, I think they're not really living in the reality of the matter, because the reality of it is, as I live, I change. Now,
that's
I think
the inevitable change. You're talking about inevitable change.
Yes. Now, whether I grow is another matter. And I think this is where the rubber needs to meet the road, because if I'm changing, I should be growing as well. And so then my perspectives are going to change. And so if I say I don't want to change, within an essence, I'm saying I don't want to grow. And I think for that person, a relationship, they should maybe put on pause. They should put on pause, because I'm not willing to change and I'm not willing to adapt. Well, then what if a life-changing situation comes up with my partner that was unexpected, and then I have to deal with that with them? And so if I'm saying, well, I don't want to change, in other words, I married you, you know what I'm saying? And when I married you, you were 36, 24, 36. And now those measurements kind of change. And then it's like, oh, well, I don't want to, no, because I didn't sign up for that. That's not the way relationship works. I know that, some people may do that, but I think, yes, I think change is, like you said, inevitable. And it goes along with relationship.
Yes. I've heard women say, I'm not changing for anybody. I'm not changing. And in marriage and relationships versus relationship, because in relationships are to build a marriage or to get information, accumulate information to see if this is our mate. But the first mindset I believe we have to have is one that's going to be willing to change to serve the individual that I'm going to be with, that I'm desiring to get into this relationship. And if I'm not willing to change, because there's going to be constant change in marriage, constant change in relationships, and I'm going to have to learn how to flow in that. But yes, I would say a person should be willing to change, because you have to have a mind of a servant. Because My heart should be to please the person I'm in the relationship with. That person should be wanting to serve me, to find out what is it, what are my needs, what are my desires, what are my aspirations, and so shall it be, with the man. And that's the way, it should be. But as far as change, and a person said that they don't want to change, a lot of times, that encumbers a whole lot, as far as change. Do you want to change where you spend holidays? Because some people are stuck on, I'm going to be with my family and that's it. And they don't want to shift to now build with this individual, because this is the way that, I've been doing things for so many years, and I don't want to release my family. And if a person is not ready to release their family and now build with their mate, what do you say about that?
Yeah, I think that's where communication would really be paramount. Communication really is the key. We say it in a cliched way, but it is the key, because I think the more that I know, then I think it produces growth. If I know something, then I'm able to grow with you. If I don't know, then it's going to be difficult when those different issues come up. Whether it is a family issue, whether it is a job issue, where it is, I want to go back to school or what have you. And so I think communication is really paramount. And I've heard, and this is true, I've heard somebody say, you know what, I don't want to repeat myself. So when I say this one time, I don't want to repeat myself. And I said to them, well, then you really don't understand the essence of relationship. Because when you really look at
hold on right there, man of God. I don't mean, I'm going to tell you something about me. I cut in. If it's something you're saying good, I cut in. Listen, I lived in a marriage. I lived in a marriage like that, where I had my ex-husband. He didn't want to repeat himself. If I say yes or no, then that's what it is. So there's no communication. But see, I wasn't in the military. I was in a marriage, so I thought. But that's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? We're supposed to be able to communicate, to dialogue, to, bounce things off of each other. And, and if you can't do that, and a lot of times those are just mindsets that came along with them from a child, or if a parent was in the military and they built that hardcore mindset up in their child, a lot of times those ways have to be broken. They have to be destroyed. Mindsets have to be destroyed. And a lot of times we think we're ready for marriage. We think we're ready for relationships. But what about old mindsets? Old mindsets have to be destroyed, in order to go into a relationship. And a lot of times what we do is we jump into relationships, and the first thing people do is have sex. And now here they've had sex, and now they want to go back, retract, and now be friends and learn about the person. And when they learn about the person, now they're all in, they're tied in, because now they've developed a soul tie. So now soul tie is in place. They know that this is not the best person for them in a relationship, but here's this soul tie, and they're tied to the person. And now they're saying that you've changed. And a lot of times I don't think it's that the person has changed. You just never got to know the person. You never took the time to know the individual. How important is it to get to know someone in a relationship before deciding to marry, deciding to take it to the next step, deciding to say that, you're committed? How important is that to get to know a person?
You know what? I think, Ambassador, that it is very important. As I mature and I'm learning, and I'm still learning, and I thank God for it, that it is paramount that we get to know a person. I think it's important that when you make that decision, that this person could be the one. They could be the one that I say I do. You begin to bring them around your various environments to see what is going to be the response or the reaction. And I think that that's important. Some people say, well, I don't think you should bring people around your family until certain. No, I think it is important, because if I bring them around my family, immediate family, if I bring them around perhaps my job's picnic that they might have, if I take them to some of the venues that I like to frequent to see how they're going to respond or react, that's going to help me. I'm going to learn a lot just by the interaction, because that's going to tell me whether or not we have anything in common. You see what I'm saying? Because we know that relationships have to be based on friendship, and friendship should be like it should be the foundational, principle. We're friends first, and then we move up. And so if we don't have things in common, I think the faster or the quicker that I know that, it helps me make the decision whether or not this person is going to be a life partner, or someone that I'm just, engaged with for a season.
Yes, I agree. Look, I just noticed my name was spelled wrong on here. Hold on one second.
Okay.
Okay, that I have to correct it. Nothing like excellence. What would be your top on your list? What is most important to you in getting into a relationship with someone, or even considering it? And the reason I say consider, let me tell you why I say consider. Because at this stage of my life, I'm very, I don't want to say, well, I'm very cautious. I'm mindful.
Yes.
I'm wiser. I don't have time to waste. And so that's why I say what is most important, because I think conversation is most important. Getting to know a person, to even find out if I want to allow them to come into my space, and vice versa. He has that right too, to see if I want them to come into my space, if I want to get to know them better. Because again, I don't believe in wasting nobody's time. I don't believe any longer. Now, I used to. I used to be one that, would entertain a gentleman just to have a date, just to go out, just to keep from being lonely, to go to dinner, all of that. But, no longer do I do that, because I don't have time to waste. I don't play with people's feelings. But what would be the top things on your list, the non-negotiables, in order to enter into a relationship?
We can go spiritual and we can go natural.
Well, let's just give me your top, whatever your
I'll
five are. If they're spiritual or if they're natural, just give them to me.
Okay. Yeah. I think number one, it would be beneficial for her and also for me if she was God-fearing.
Okay.
That would be paramount. That would be paramount, God-fearing. Because I would look at that and say, well, if a person is God-fearing, whether she is or whether I am, then there's certain things that are in play. Doesn't mean we're perfect. I think a lot of people get that also, and that's they get that misconstrued. They think because you come up and say that I'm a Christian, that everything in your life is perfect. Everything is a 10. And it's like, no, but remember, we're still works in progress. And so we're not going to be complete until we transition. So with that, I would say God-fearing. I would say the second thing is that it would be beneficial if she loves God more than me. Because the fact that I am created in his image, and if I could love the person that created me more, then it wouldn't be difficult for them loving the creation.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yes. These are your top fives. I'm rolling with you right now.
Yeah. So that would be, I would say, number two. Number three, I would say, and I call it the 3 C's. I call it the 3 C's. Number one, compassionate. Number two, caring. And number three, concern. Okay. I think that is very important to have the 3 C's. Because we see in the society that we're in nowadays, Ambassador, a lot of people have developed this, what they call spirit of narcissism, where it's me and my 3, me and my 4 and no more, And I think if you're going to be in relationship, because again, what God taught me a few years ago, when I thought about relationship and I was in my early 30s, I looked up the word relationship. And the first 2 letters, that prefix just kept sticking out at me. I kept looking at RE, which means to do over. And so God says, Jeffrey, if you're going to be in anything successful, you have to learn to do things over. You can't say that I have arrived and I have gotten to the place to where I got that. And so I don't need to do anything. If I brought you flowers on Monday, I might have to repeat that again on Wednesday or Thursday. And it might not be because there's a special reason. It's just because. Because if I say I love you, saying that I love you is what I do, not just what I say. You see? And so I think having those 3 C's are very important. Compassionate, caring, and being concerned. You know, because a lot of people can sit right next to you, Ambassador, and see you're going through something and they look away.
Right.
And it's like, can't you feel, can't you tell, can't you see? Even if you can't feel and tell, you might can look at me and see that I'm not my best today. You know, so just even saying, well, how are you?
In order to see, you got to be able to feel and tell, discern what's going on with somebody. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Jeffrey?
Say that again, Ambassador.
I said, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I can barely hear you now. It's amazing that the volume went down.
I don't know what happened. I didn't change anything, just technology. But, you know, it's important. It's important to find out what the individual likes in order to know how to serve them. Because somebody may like, now we're talking about intimacy here. Somebody may like flowers and somebody may like candy. I will forget somebody bought me a huge box. He'll be back in a minute. Somebody purchased me a huge box of candy, See's candy, and I don't care for See's candy. I'm not a See's candy girl. So it's very important to find out what the individual likes and not just take something that you like. So it's about serving the other person in relationships. And a lot of people, I think he's back. It's about serving. In order for me to serve someone effectively, I have to find out what it is that they like. Because I might think that I'm doing a good thing and bringing them something, but it may not be what they like. They may not like chocolate cake and they may like strawberry cake for their birthday, but it's about entering into a relationship and finding out about the person. Because then if a person is just doing what they want, I never will forget when I was married, I didn't like butter on my toast. And I'm bringing up these scenarios of what I went through, my experience. I didn't like butter on my toast. But my ex thought that I should have butter on my toast regardless. You don't get to ask for it your way. See, that's a mindset. See, that's not one that's willing to be open and serve. See, serving is about finding out what you like and be happy about it, because I want to outserve my spouse. And we should be willing to outserve each other to please each other. If I plan a date, I should be willing to outdo him on, when I take him out on a date and I'm planning the date, I want to make it big. I want to make it large. You know what I'm saying? But surrounded by the things that he enjoys, not all about, only about me, not just about me. So when we say we're prepared for relationships, are we really prepared? Because mentally, there's many ways we can prepare. Mentally, emotionally, because being mentally prepared, now you're allowing somebody to come into your space. Are you, and we have to be honest with ourselves. Am I prepared to now cohabitate with somebody?
Yes.
Because I'm used to living a certain way. He's used to living a certain way. So have we changed our mindset now that now I'm going to be cohabitating with somebody, living with somebody, and am I willing to? Are we going to get a new dwelling altogether, a new home? Because everybody is not capable or able to allow somebody to come into a home that existed before the relationship.
Right. Yes.
And not be selfish about, I want things this way, I want things that way. So if a person is like that or individual, I think it's best to get your own, to get a home together that you guys both walk into together and not already existed. So are we mentally prepared? Are we mentally prepared to call somebody and say, I'm on my way home, I'm just getting off work, I'm gonna make a stop over at wherever I'm going, just checking in. So it's a lot of, it's a lot of responsibility. And we have to be prepared for those changes. And sometimes people are. You may have been used to going over your boy's house after work and doing what you want to do, or she may have been hanging out with her girls on the weekend, But now here's a change. I'm committed to somebody else. Now let's shift it. What about being prepared when there's children already in the relationship? Because when you come into a relationship, I believe that the person is good enough for me to lay down with and give them my body. If the person is good enough for me to say I do to and allow them to be a covering over me, then why isn't it that they cannot correct my children? And sometimes that's a big one in relationships that, you know, I don't want you to say anything to my kids, and I don't want you to correct my kids. And what do you say about that? Would it elaborate on that? When there's children already in the relationship, and you have children, but your children aren't small. But however, let's deal with the aspect of, you know, if your children were living in the home with you, now do you want your children to be corrected by your spouse? Because I don't think a woman should get married if they have small children and the man or the children are living in a home and the man can't have anything to say with regards to, you know, what goes on with their children and correcting, and they're living up under the same roof. And I digress, and you can speak. Jeffrey, you can't hear me? Oh, it's a delay.
Yes.
Okay, because you're on the cell phone, it's a delay. But what do you say about that?
Yeah, I think going back to what you were saying as far as the mental, I think mentally is very, very important. And I would honestly say that I think the mental part of it actually for men comes with maturity, because I believe with us, you know, we don't know everything. And especially like for me, I didn't have a father in the home. And so there were a lot of things that I did not know, and I was not in a position to ask because I didn't see a man model that behavior. So when I get angry now, because see, anger, and I, you know, by me working in the capacity I work in, I would always correct the men. I said, there's a difference between being mad and being angry, because mad means I'm out of my mind. Anger means that I am emotionally disturbed. So it's two different things. So I have to be careful with that terminology. Now, but when I get angry, if I've never seen a man in the home, then mentally, how do I process and how do I deal with the situation where I am married to a young lady and she has children that are biologically not mine? And so, like you said, I think mental is really important. And that's where I think, like we said, communication is the key. And then being able to have people that have been married that I could lean on, those counselors, as the Bible talks about, where it says wisdom is found in a multitude of counselors, people that have been married 20 and 30 years that have stayed in their marriage come hell or high water. And I have been able to watch and observe their lifestyles to see that they went through some things, but they made it. And so glean from them, you know what I'm saying, to help me, because I think that mental part is really, really big, Ambassador. It's really big. Because a lot of times anger.
But what about the relationship part when there's kids already and you go into the relationship, she has children. Are you willing to go into a relationship and a woman does not want you to correct her children, direct her children, give her children wisdom?
That's going to be a major problem. Because see, as we were kind of chatting last night and we were talking about a situation, we talked about unity and we talked about divisiveness. And so if we have a situation where we come together, we're one. That means everybody under the auspices of that home, they come under the one. So it can't be you and be my children. You know, now we could play that, you know what I'm saying, because that's really a game. We could play the game, but in all actuality, we're going to lose. Somebody is going to lose. Because if you're telling me that as the man at home, and if I'm really a real man, and I'm not talking about in terms of my physical stature and just how much money I bring in, but I'm talking about that I have conditioned myself and put myself in a position to where I am being the priest, the provider, and the protector. So I'm doing all three. You know what I'm saying? I'm the priest, which means I'm providing spiritual, covering. I am a protector. I'm not only protecting you physically, but I'm protecting you in every other way that I can. Like you said, by being that counselor, by being the father, by talking to you, by communicating, that is still protecting you because I'm letting you know things that could possibly happen when you leave out of this home. But now if the situation is where I can't talk and I can't say anything to the children, and then they go out and get in a situation and then they come back and say, well, nobody told me that. And it's like, well, I could have, but your mom, or in this case, it could be dad, want me to say anything to you. So I would agree with you, Ambassador. That would be a red flag. If I can't say anything to the children, I would to rethink the relationship and the marriage.
Okay, I'm gonna ask the people in the chat here on Facebook. What do you guys think? Is that a red flag? And it's a little delayed. Is there a red flag to go into a relationship and the parents of the children, there's already pre-existing children in the relationship, is that a red flag for them not to want their future spouse or their spouse to correct the children? So I want to hear from you guys. Type in the chat. Is that a problem? Would that be a problem for them not wanting to permit their spouse to correct, direct, and give the children wisdom? What do you say, Facebook? So the other thing is, people say they're ready. We're talking about being prepared for marriage. But they haven't had the conversation of, they haven't prepared their credit. So sometimes what has happened, and I've experienced this, where, okay, we have Deborah. Deborah said, hold on, yes, because it will tear that marriage apart if they don't come together in unity. I agree, Deborah Knight. I totally agree. I totally agree. So if there's another comment that comes in, I'll let you go. So Deborah Knight says yes. So that's one yes. So what do you think, ladies and gentlemen? Will it tear a relationship apart if the other spouse does not want their current spouse in a new relationship, a new marriage, to correct and direct the kids? A lot of times people think they're ready, but they haven't even, gotten their credit together. They haven't even, started a savings plan. And it would be, I think it would be most beneficial if the two sat down and even planned out financially. Because I don't want to go into a marriage struggling. I'm not going into a marriage, financially struggling. Jeffrey left again. I'm not going into a marriage financially struggling. And a lot of times we say that we're ready for the relationship, but we're not if we have not sat down to prepare for the future. And one thing that should be looked at now in preparation for marriage is the credit. Start working on your credit. I tell people this all the time from experience, because it's no fun going into a relationship or going into a marriage and one person's credit is bad and the other person's credit is good, and then that spouse has to get the home in their name. That's a problem.
Yes.
Because you want to come in together. You want to come in together, building the marriage and building the foundation and getting a home together, because those are exciting things. Those are exciting times. Yeah. But one person is going to feel slighted if the house has to just be in the other person's name. What do you say about that?
I agree. And again, communication, Ambassador, and then now for me as a man, when I know better, I should do better. So those areas of my life that needs improving, then those are the areas that I should work on. And then now honesty comes in and trust, because now that I want you to trust me, I'm going to be honest and I'm going to tell you up front, this is what I'm dealing with, A, B, and C. Right. And so are you willing to wait? See, a lot of times we're not wait because we emotionalize the relationship when love is not just emotionalism. I believe what God taught me about love, and it was amazing how he did it when I began to look up the word love. And I discovered, first of all, that there were 4 kinds of love. So I kept doing a more in-depth study. And it was like, wow, really the essence of love is not the heat of the moment and the passion and all of this that I feel for you. Really at the cusp, that love is a decision. It is a decision.
Mm-hmm.
So that means now that I
Exactly.
have to think out what it is that I'm doing and not just emotionalize everything, because if I just dive in because of your hips, lips, and fingertips, and I don't think that, do I have myself together? Because it's not
Mm-hmm.
about you. It's like you said, I'm serving you and you're serving me. That's another point I wanted to bring out when you mentioned that right quick, if I might, that that the essence of love should be that two people are at racing to serve each other,
Mm-hmm.
that there is never lack. There is never lack, because if I'm racing to serve you and you're racing
Mm-hmm.
to serve me, that now, see, people don't understand, because see, when the devil gets in your ear, well, child, you're doing too much. You need to slow down. He need to know. But if we are serving each other, then it is a two-way street. It's not one way, it's a two-way. So there's always an exchange. There's always a give
Yes,
and there's always a receive. You see,
I
and see,
agree.
what we do is, that's why the Bible says a man shall leave his father and his mother. In other words, we
Mm-hmm.
get the gossipers and we get the naysayers and we get the haters out of the way, so that way all we're looking at is each other. And if I'm serving
Mm-hmm.
you and you're serving me, be time for lack. Because when I get up in the morning, I'm racing to the kitchen to fix you breakfast. You racing to
Mm-hmm.
fix me breakfast. So some breakfast, that means we're on the same page and we're working for the same goal. We're going to get there faster. And then the love now is going to intensify. It is going to grow, because it won't be what we're lacking. It's going to be what we're gaining. So now I can
Mm-hmm.
look at the cup now half full instead of always talking about it being half empty.
Yes, Jeffrey froze for a second. Well, okay, it's clear now. Miss Connie says not fair for the other to have to sort out and fix the mess prior to union. I agree. Mary says they can add the spouse after the loan, add the title. Yeah, but we're talking about fixing problems before there is a problem. And add the title, that would be proper. Yes, but what about fixing the credit before we go into the marriage? Because it's not going to only affect that one thing, it's going to affect other things in the marriage. And why not just fix the problem? See, we're talking about going in being prepared, not patching up, not, you know what I mean, saying not mending. Miss Connie says, yes, the essence of love is a decision. Deborah Knight says, yes, love is truly a choice and a decision. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
so they agree. Yes, yes, yes. So we want to fix up. We don't want to patch up. And see, because see, we're trying to alleviate problems, unforeseen problems, and preparation is key to that. To be prepared.
Yeah.
Let's work on the credit before we get into the marriage. Let's straighten out our
Yes.
credit. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's not a cool fix, because a lot of times, and I was one of these individuals, we think that,
Mm-hmm.
okay, we can get in a marriage and then, the husband will just fix it up. And that's not fair. You know what I'm saying? That's
I
not fair.
agree. I agree.
Of saying, well, baby, I'll take care of it. And vice versa. Because some women, they marry and they make more money and then they have the home first and they have but what women don't realize is this. Let me throw this in there. Because I've gone through
Mm-hmm.
divorce, there's a lot I understand now about the court system. And I actually write about in my book, women who make more, they pay alimony, they pay child support too. They pay alimony too.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
it's important for us to count up the cost of the relationship and not go in just based on emotions. And as you stated something that I wanted to backtrack on. You said that we should outserve each other. I'm trying to think of what it was to say. It'll come back to me. Oh, Jeffrey is on that cell phone. That's probably what it is. But again, he'll be back. But it's important to fix situations before we go into it, so that we can go in and not money can cause a lot of stress in marriage, and it does cause a lot of stress in marriage and family mingling. When you already have a pre-existing family, there should be communication before going into marriage about, okay, here's Jeffrey. Hold on one second. Okay. This keeps dropping you out, huh?
Yes.
Technology. But I was saying, when there is a pre-existing family, there should be communication and hopefully peace amongst, both sides of the family, the ex, with the children, because, that's tumultuous when you go into a relationship and, there's not peace between the spouse. And I would even suggest that if it's even possible, the exes, try to work out situations and bring peace for the sake of the children. Now, you have children. Would your children be open to you getting married again?
Good question, Ambassador. I know initially they are apprehensive, but at this point, because they are teenagers, they do understand, that dad has a need to be loved as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so the only thing that they tell me now is funny when they tell me, they say, you know what, Dad, yeah, you can get married, but she's going to have to be, ABC. And so they kind of give me this descriptive, vision of her and so forth, and everything. And they really try to make me seem like I'm like high maintenance, and really I'm not. I'm really a low maintenance person, but I just think for me, in terms of relationships, a lot of times people don't get to know you. And when they don't get to know you, they kind of prejudge you. They prejudge you based on the exterior, and so my daughters, because they know what person I am, and they watch me closely. And so they said, well, you know what? I don't think a certain kind of woman is going to be good for you, Dad. You're going to need this kind of woman, this kind of woman. And I said, well, you know what? We're going to cross that bridge when we come to it. I said, but I believe in my heart, if she loves God, she loves herself. Secondly, then she can love me, because I believe that she would have some foundation, and again, just getting to know a person, like you said earlier, is so much, we miss that. The nostalgia of going out and dating. I know, people think you're antiquated. They think chivalry is dead. But I'm the type of person, Ambassador, I still like to open doors.
Oh,
I still like to put you in the car first.
Absolutely.
I still like to bring.
And those are things he was talking about, opening up the car door. I want you guys in the chat to write down what are some of your non-negotiables would be in a relationship. What are 5 of your non-negotiables in a relationship? I want you guys to type in the chat. What are your 5 non-negotiables in a relationship that's just, it's just a must? She said, ain't nobody knew good enough for my dad. Miss Connie said. She said, your children say, ain't nobody knew good enough for my dad. That's funny. She said, children aren't necessarily open to new. Children aren't necessarily open to new, she was saying.
Say that again, Ambassador. I didn't hear that. Say the last part. I didn't hear. I'm sorry, man.
Miss Connie said children are not necessarily open to new. And then she said also, ain't nobody new good enough for my dad. You hear me? Okay, there's I think the problem is probably using the cell phone and not the laptop. Can you hear me? You can now?
Yes, Yes, okay, I can now. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So I'm waiting for them to type in their 5 non-negotiables in relationship. And don't you guys, while you're here, don't forget to like our page before you leave. And don't forget to type in your 5 non-negotiables. Dating and marriage are totally different. Dating and being married. See, when you're dating, there's no responsibility. See what I'm saying? Yes. And then you get married, and then all of a sudden there's responsibility. So that's a totally different ball game now. Now, you may feel a little bit more pressure. You may feel a little bit more to be committed. Some people, don't feel as free as they felt prior to, being married. But see, I think that's just the trick of the enemy. That's where that mental preparation comes into state, knowing, because people on the outside looking in, married people want to be single people want to be married.
Yeah.
You hear what I'm saying? So you have to be prepared to be married. And I think that no one should get into a relationship just for the sake of getting into a relationship. I think a person should be committed. And I don't know if you know this answer, but why is it that some men, and you can only speak for you, probably, I don't know, some men just get into a relationship just to be in a relationship, just to, say they're in a relationship and they have more than, one lady. And this happens on both ends. And I'm gonna speak from the female perspective, and you can speak from the male perspective. Let's say this: the misfortunes of not being committed. Let's talk about the misfortunes of not being committed to that person and not being honest in a relationship. What are some of the misfortunes?
I think for men, like you said, speaking of commitment, again, lack of father in the home. So now I don't have identity. I think that that's really important. If I don't have identity, then I don't have a reference point. So if I've never seen my father be faithful, then how do I know what faithful is? And so now when I get to the age where now I could become active in terms of dating and having relationships, you know what I'm saying, I tend to run wild because I don't have that reference point. Or the second thing is, maybe I do have a reference point, but then I saw somebody in my family, they were, kind of lascivious, loose, or promiscuous. You see what I'm saying? So it could be that well. Either way, I'm being taught, by default, I'm being taught by willful volition, but either way, I'm taught. And then some of it maybe just my tendencies, what I'm saying? Because I have not gotten enough information and I haven't tried. I just went out there and I just was doing my own thing. And because I saw that I could do this, that, and the other, I did it, not thinking of the ramifications, not thinking of the repercussions, that at the end of the day, this young lady has feelings as well. And so I cannot play with her emotions because I want to gratify myself sexually and think that there's not going to be any repercussions. And there's some folk that walk around and they do that. They don't think, so I think commitment is very important. But going back to that foundational principle, communication, what is it that we want? When we both can identify what we want, then we both can move forward because we got a clear-cut understanding, and then we could build on it. And then if there's any distractions, whether it's marrying someone with children and then the children, come into play, stop, time out, let's huddle, let's talk. You know what I'm saying? If it's a financial issue that comes into play, stop, time out, let's huddle, let's talk. I think what we do in relationships, like you said, we just keep on going, Ambassador, thinking that they're going to work themselves out. You see what I'm saying? Oh, it'll be all right. You've heard people say that. It'll be all right. Not going to be all right. If you ran up the debt, talking about me as a man, if I ran up the debt and I don't pay it, it is not going to be all right. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to have to stop my plan and say, okay, Jeffrey, you need to pay A, B, and C to get credit on track, to get whatever on track, to get buying a house on track, buying a new car, or sending the kids to college, or whatever it is that we want to do. So yeah, commitment is vitally important. And I think, again, if I want to love you, I would want that commitment. So I would have to say, and this might not be the case for all men, because some say, well, they might disagree. If I don't love, then that's why I don't want the commitment, because really I don't have a love for you. So then that's why I don't want to be committed, because and then I'm telling you. So then at that point now, we don't need to keep asking, because some people say, well, I keep asking them and they keep evading the question. They won't answer me. They are. Because the old cliche is actions speak louder than words. So whether I'm telling you or not, I'm showing you. And that's what the old folk used to do. My mother, she's 86, and she says it to this day. Actions speak louder than words.
Yes.
So whether you tell me, but if you keep, you keep showing me
that term.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or I can show you better than I can tell you. That was another one of her terms, her isms she would use all the time. I was just thinking about those old sayings the other day that, the older people use, but they're still true today. And, I think that a person, male or female, should not be afraid to let go of what's not for them. If they know
That's
the
it.
person is not for them, then it's best to let that person go and not be afraid to be
Hmm.
alone. And so a
Yes.
lot of times we just take relationships into seasons that they should not go into. Sometimes we know
Yes.
when it's time to cut it off. We know when it's not serving us. We know when we're not compatible. We know when we're not getting what it is that we desire and need out of a relationship. We know that when we're getting the short end of the stick. You know what I'm saying? We
Yeah.
know when God is telling us not to marry somebody and we marry them anyways. We know these things. And there's
Yes.
great repercussions, behind it. And I'm going to read, before we close, I'm going to read a page in my book that I wrote when we're talking about relationships.
Yes.
It said, stop, look, listen, follow through, and wait on God. Refuse to be quick to fall in love. The reality is that we don't actually fall in love, we grow in love. When we are
Mm.
mature, we make a conscious decision to be in love and commit to loving someone. Look, stay alert and be clear about what you see. Refuse to put on blinders. Don't let your emotions run your life or dictate your choices
Mm.
because emotions often lie to us. Though we may not realize it until we've gone too far to change our minds. My mother used to say, don't have diarrhea of the mouth. Become a
Hmm.
great listener and listen for what you need to hear. Be a
Yes.
conscious observer and look for the follow through along with consistency. Fake can't continue to be fake for long. Remember that old saying that talk is cheap? Apply it to this area of your life. Let me repeat: stop, look, listen, follow through, and wait on God. You want to give yourself enough time to find out who the person really is before you commit. Do not be
Yes.
desperate. Don't relinquish to another your most precious possessions, your mind and heart, before you find out who he really is. Where is he going in life? And most importantly, whether or not is God's man or woman. Notice that I didn't mention your body among your most precious possessions. Save
Hmm.
that for your wedding night. No ringy, no dingy until after you say I do. You can't fall in love and give yourself completely, including your body, then cry foul when the fantasy in your head doesn't work out the way that you were hoping. And that's from my book called Happiness is an Inside Job, Broken but Not Bitter. You can get it on Amazon. Happiness is an Inside Job. And the most important part of that title is Broken but Not Bitter. I share my testimony in the book, and it's really a good book for relationships. I write to women, but actually, the book is information that's helpful for men and women. So I would admonish men and
Yes.
women to go and to get the book. Miss Deborah said, Connie said, let's see. He must, okay, Miss Connie said he must work, good hygiene, chivalry, open, not a narcissist, uh, selfish, self-centered. Deborah, help us with that, Ambassador. We be knowing, just don't want to listen. Okay, don't cast your pearls before swine. Yes, yes. So listen, what we're going to do is we're going to wrap up. We're at 53 minutes. Time goes by so fast when you're having good conversation with good
Hmm.
company. And I really enjoyed you on here with me today for Relationship Saturday. I appreciate you for stepping in and being here on today. Did you enjoy yourself?
Hmm.
Can you
Thank
hear
you,
me?
Ambassador. Yeah, like you said, this hour went by fast, but
It
yeah, this
did.
has definitely been enriching, and I appreciate the invite, and definitely dialoguing with you has really, really been awesome.
Thank you. Well, listen, we're going to close this session out. of powerful conversations. But don't forget, we're going to have a bonus show coming up this Wednesday at 12 noon. There'll be a bonus show, Powerful Conversations, coming up Wednesday, the 16th at 12 noon. And I want to thank you again for being here. And I hope you guys joined it, enjoyed it. Don't forget to like our page. Don't forget to share this with somebody. And listen, we'll be back here on this Wednesday for the bonus show at 12 noon. And then our regular shows are every Saturday at 11:30 a.m. And remember, I love you. Until next time, God bless.